Alright, so today you're going to be making fresh pasta. So I'm going to show you how you're going to do that. It's a very, very simple recipe. All it requires is a cup of flour. Please make sure that you measure correctly. You need to fluff your flour. The other day I saw somebody do the scoop and scrape it against the side of the bin. No, what happens is you end up packing your flour. So you're going to fluff it, scoop it, and then level it off. By doing that, you get the exact right amount of flour. So then the recipe tells you to make a well into your flour. What that means is you're going to take and you're going to make a hole in the middle of your flour. Okay, this is where your egg is going to go, and this is where your water and your oil are going to go. All right, so into the well, you're going to crack your egg. And make sure that you look at it before you put it in there. The other day we found an egg that had a blood spot in it, and that's not very appealing. So I look at it, no shells, so then I'm gonna put that in there. Then it requires a tablespoon of water and a teaspoon of olive oil. And our tablespoon of water, best to have cool to lukewarm water in your well. Okay, so then all you do is you take a fork and you start mixing your egg and your oil and little bits of flour into the center of your well. And eventually you're going to get a ball of dough. Now this looks like it's a really, really small amount of dough, but you'll be surprised. So you just keep going at it, keep pulling in a little more flour. Now the key thing is do not grab all of your flour at one time, because you may not use it all. Depending on how humid the day is or how dry the day is, determines how much flour you end up using. So you're just going to do that until you get a nice little ball of dough, and I'm getting pretty close. Alright, so now that you've got that, you're going to start to knead your dough. So this is just like if you were making breadsticks. So then we're going to take little bits of this flour, and we're going to start folding and pushing our dough so that we can develop the gluten and get it smooth and elastic. And eventually it starts to work itself into a smooth ball of dough. So now I'm folding, and you can see now it's getting easier to work with. I'm folding, I'm pushing, and I'm only taking little bits of the flour until it's getting to the point that I can work it easily. You don't want to get too much flour in there, because then your dough becomes too hard to work with, and then it will fall apart when we try and put it through the pasta maker. And as you work with it, the sticky stuff will come off your hands. Okay, so at this point it's ready. We're going to let it rest for a little bit, and then we'll go to the pasta machine. Alright, so your dough has rested for about 5 minutes, and so now it's ready to go through the pasta roller and the pasta cutter. So it has a dial on this side, and it is numbered, and you want to crank it through each one of the numbers until it gets thin enough that you can almost see through it. So I'm going to start on the widest one, which is 0. The blades, roller blades, are about 1/8 of an inch apart. And you just start with the crank, and you crank it through. And you might want somebody to help you, because each time you go through, it gets longer and it gets thinner. So now we're going to transfer to number 1, and we'll roll it through again. You notice each time it gets a little bit longer. If by chance it starts to get a little sticky, I've taken my cup of flour that was on the counter and I've put it in my measuring cup, and I can use this flour to dust my tray, and I can use that to dust both sides of my pasta so that it doesn't stick. So we'll just keep running it through. So when you get to the last one, and this one I got to number 7, and it is to the point that it is very thin. I can almost see through it. It's got kind of a papery feel to it. And so this is when I'm going to take and let it dry a little bit. This is obviously really long, so I'm going to cut it so that it resembles more of regular size length noodles. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to dust it a little bit. Okay, so then this is when you change over your cutter. So this was the roller, and we rolled it through. Now I'm going to put the crank into the cutter part, and we're going to cut our fettuccine noodles. I would recommend not using the spaghetti cutter because it ends up getting clumped together. So anyway, I've dusted it, and now we're just going to run it through the cutter. Okay, and then you're going to take your spaghetti or your fettuccine noodles, and you're just going to lay them in your flour. You kind of dust them a little bit and separate them a little bit so that they're ready to dry. And then we'll do this one, dust the sides a little bit, and run it through the crank. Okay, and again, you separate it out. You use some of your flour to dust them off. Get them separated out. And now you're ready to cook. So now I've got a pot of water boiling. It's got some salt in it so that it will add salt to your taste of your pasta. And you're just going to take and drop it gently, little bit by little bit, into your water. And it cooks extremely fast. Within about 30 seconds, your noodles will be cooked and ready to go. So by the time I get them all in here and swish them around, they will be done. So then I just stir them a little bit, and you'll be able to tell when they are finished. They will kind of puff up a little bit, and they will change to a lighter color. So I'm just going to turn around here. And 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, they're done. So now the pasta is drained and ready, and look how lovely that is, your fettuccine noodles. So now it's ready to enjoy with Alfredo or fresh tomato sauce.